it is a cloudy summer morning outside of Toronto, and I am in a 2022 John Cooper Works Mini with a 6-speed manual transmission. And in this video, I'm going to answer 3 questions. Number 1, is it worth the money that this car costs? Number 2, is this a good hot hatch? And number 3, should you get this stick shift manual or the automatic at no extra charge? So the full name of this car would be the Mini Cooper 3-door John Cooper Works. Basically, this is the Mini. They're just calling it the 3-door, 1, 2, and 3, I guess. And you can also buy it as a 5-door, which is the same car with an extra pair of doors in the back. And then you have the Countryman, which is the SUV kind of thing. So the base model is the Cooper with 134 horsepower for $31,000. One level up from that is the Cooper S with 190 horsepower. What we have is the range topper, the John Cooper Works with 228 horsepower. And that's going to cost you $47,000 to start. As you see it, about $49,000. Now, this is the fastest Mini you can buy, but not the most powerful. The Countryman has more power because it's bigger and heavier. So a little bit about pricing and spec, and then I promise we will get driving. So in Canada, this car only comes in one trim, the Premier. You can't choose a higher or lower trim level. If you want a John Cooper Works, it just comes this way. And it kind of comes with most of the things you want. One of the only things that doesn't come with what you want is any other paint color. You get one free paint color, and then all the rest costs either $590 or $1,000, as our Rebel Green test car is. An interesting thing I thought is that the contrasting red mirror caps and roof are actually no cost. You can just get that. You can get it in silver or red, depending on what kind of other color you have option. But enough about the spec sheet. Let's go driving, putting it in first gear. Up front, powering the front wheels is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine making 228 horsepower. And it feels like it. Hopping in this car makes every other car you've driven just feel needlessly big. It feels light and eager. It's fun, makes a good noise, and at 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6-point-something seconds, it's fast. And if you let it run long enough, this car will go over 240 kilometers per hour. It is straight up a fast car. It also feels lively. It's got a short wheelbase. I have this big chunky boy steering wheel in front of me, and it just feels that you could go anywhere on the road you wanted to. And it's so small, you can kind of place it in the lane. You can kind of pick your line through corners, and it's just a joy to work this transmission. I sometimes find myself shifting for no other reason than just, it's fun. This thing has the same joy of operation that you would find in like a Mazda MX-5 or something like that. It's one of those great cars that makes you want to just keep driving it. It's a ton of fun. And it should be, because the recipe is perfect. Stick shift, lightweight, front wheel drive, small wheelbase, light car. It's hard to go wrong with that. What does that 228 horsepower feel like? I will give you a demonstration. So, from a stop, in first, floor it, away we go. It's just so much fun to drive. It just reminds you of all those light hot hatches from the 80s. It just feels like a little puppy on wheels. It's so much fun. Now, when you shift it down a gear and it comes time to just drive your car normally, you do get a fair amount of road noise from the tires, but other than that, this car is incredibly well composed. The ride is the sporty side of comfortable. I would not call it harsh by any means, and the engine is so tractable. You could drive this car around at 1500 RPM, at 2000 RPM, at 4000 RPM. It doesn't really care. The engine is so flexible that you don't have to shift it to keep it happy all the time, because it has that turbo torque kind of everywhere. And what that means is that, you know, when you want to just relax and drive it, you know, a bit lazy, if you will, it will let you do that. It's a relaxing car to drive if you want it to be, and it's a fun car to drive if you want it to be. That duality, that flexibility is something that not every car offers, and the Mini does it very well. Once you get on the highway, higher speeds, it's also not bad for a small car. There's lots of passing power. You have a ton of power under the hood, and that 6th gear is super low. This whole car does quiet down, and it lets you hear that premium audio system, and not just the sound from those sweet center exit exhaust exhaust pipes. And part of the reason it's so fun to drive is this transmission, and not just because it's a manual. In fact, I've driven lots of manuals where I prefer to have the automatic, but this is a very rare good one. And part of the reason it's so satisfying to use is that the throws are kind of long. It's got a long shift lever compared to the stubby ones we normally see. And what that does is it makes the shifts feel a little more satisfying. It allows you to feel a little bit more in control of the engine than you would with an automatic. Transmission and the engine also feel equally matched. Sometimes when you get a really fast car with a manual, the human feels like the slowest part of the equation. But in this car, I feel like I'm working with the car, not against it. Now let's talk about this interior. And like the exterior, the Mini is the way it is because it wants to look a certain way. And you have to admit, it's quite stylish. This car does turn heads in a parking lot, and you will never mistake your car for someone else's. The Mini has a very distinctive look on the outside. It has these very upright windshield pillars, a very flat hood, and its overall proportions make it quite attractive looking. Again, and the same is on the inside. Once you get inside, you can clearly see that it is shaped in a certain way to look a certain way, and it looks great. I love these toggle switches. I love this big long shifter. I like this big circular display in the middle, but it was designed to look good, and I can tell because everything in here is not exactly where you would expect it. I can't quite get comfortable in this car, and my girlfriend couldn't get quite comfortable in it either. To be close enough to push the clutch all the way in, I'm really close to the steering wheel, and then I'm so close to the shifter, my elbow is kind of in the seat bolster, and I'm not very tall. I don't usually have these problems. And so the ergonomics, it's not that this car is small or cramped inside, it's just that the ergonomics in here are strange. Things are farther and closer than you would expect. That said, there is a decent amount of room in this car considering what it is. This seat goes way down if you're a taller person. You have a lot of headroom, and it goes pretty far back if you're a taller person with needing a lot of leg room. It actually lacks a little bit for smaller people. My girlfriend, who's a shorter person than I am, found that she actually couldn't get the seat far enough forward to be comfortable with this. And so again, with a car like this, the interior is designed to look good first, and it makes some ergonomic compromises to do that. It doesn't mean it's bad fit for you, but it does mean you should try it before you buy it because it's not shaped in here like most cars are. These gauges in front of the steering wheel actually move up and down with the wheel, which is good. The problem is that even though it does move with the wheel, you can't see the top of it no matter where it is. And I don't know why they did that. It's like the wheel is about an inch too low to read the top of the screen. Literally, to read the top of the screen, I have to be like this. I can't read the top of the gauges, and it's fine because I can read the speedometer, I can read the tachometer, I can mostly do what I need to do, but it just doesn't quite line up with how I would like it to. I think the overall quality of materials is quite good, and I think the design of them kind of makes up for what they lack in texture. Yes, the texture of some of these is not so pleasing, but it does look premium because it's designed so well. And we got to talk about that back seat. It is not just a penalty box. You can put people back there, with the notable disclaimer that they better be really flexible to get back there, because it's a two-door. You kind of have to squeeze yourself back there, but once you are located, it's not a bad place to sit. You have a decent amount of room for a small car. The same generous compliments cannot be extended to the cargo area, which can barely fit 1.5 carry-on bags. It's not very big. So now I'm going to answer those 3 questions I promised I would at the beginning of the video. Number 1, is it worth the money? This car, as you see it, is $49,000, which is a lot. That's Mustang money. That buys you things like the Golf R, the Golf GTI quite easily. There's a lot of buying power. And my answer to that is it is worth the money if you happen to be within the Mini's narrow use case, which is someone looking for a premium small car that's fun to drive. That's a niche of a niche in 2022, but there's very few cars to satisfy it. There's lots of hot hatches around. Hyundai will sell you one, Volkswagen will sell you one, and up until recently, Ford would as well. But a premium hot hatch, a car that feels as nice inside as a luxury car, but is also a hot hatch, is a dwindling segment. You can no longer buy the RS3 in Canada. And so it almost wins by default in that segment. And if you want a car that is a hot hatch, that's fun to drive, but also doesn't make you look like a teenager, like a Civic Type R would, this is hands down a perfect compromise of those things. It's not as practical as a, quote, regular car. It is very small, and you are making compromises for how it looks and for how it drives. But if you're looking for something fun to drive that also feels so nice inside, so premium, then yes, I think it is worth the money. Second question, is it a good hot hatch? Well, as you may have gathered from the video so far, my answer is yes, it is good. It contains to me all the hot hatch hallmarks, which is not just being fast, but being fun and feeling lightweight to drive, which it does, despite being pretty heavy for old car standards. But yes, I'm giving it the hot hatch seal of approval. Final question, should you get the automatic or the manual? Now, on the Mini, it's no cost, either one. The automatic costs the same as the manual. There's no value reason to choose one over the other. And I have said before in some cars that I would prefer to have an automatic. But in this case, with the type of car it is and how nice this manual is to drive, and the fact that there's no cost advantage to going with an automatic, then yes, I would say in this car you do want those 3 pedals, you do want the 6-speed manual. And so there are your questions answered for the Mini Cooper John Cooper Works stick shift. For Driving.ca, I'm Clayton Seams, and for more hot hatch reviews, don't forget to follow our website at Driving.ca and on Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget to let us know in the comments what we should drive next.